We must move on. There we go. Well, hopefully you'll join me later, Dave. So thank you very much indeed for solving the cat story issue. If you want to get involved in the conversation, I'd like to hear from you. Have you gone electric? Have you got an electric car? Would you make the switch? Would you recommend it? I made the switch about 15 years ago. And don't get me wrong, I love petrol cars. Still have one. But in terms of electric vehicles, I'm also a fan. They can be very good. But have you got one? Anyway, we must turn our attention to the world of finance. Dr. Roger Gievold, he's CEO of Fair Money, joins me now. Dr. Roger, good morning.
Good morning, James.
So, I can sense your excitement as we need to talk about tax. And I suppose, look, this is an issue for whoever gets in power. We often talk about tax rates and thresholds. Can you explain to those who are listening what sort of fiscal drag is?
It's when people are paying tax who shouldn't be, and when people are paying more tax than they should. And it refers to whether you're one side of the income tax threshold or not. Now,
and that's the key point, isn't it? Which is, so the government will set thresholds at which you start paying tax, and then they'll set further thresholds as to when you start paying a higher rate of tax. And I suppose the big issue is that those are stuck static, and I suppose I'm assuming fiscal drag, if you've had inflation and those thresholds don't move, don't change, then effectively you've had a tax rise.
Yes, in other words, the tax thresholds which start at £12,570, should be moved every year in line with inflation. But this incompetent government froze them until 2028, several years ago. And therefore, people such as 600,000 pensioners that are receiving a state pension, which is not an awful lot of money, find that they are now paying some tax, whereas a year or two ago they weren't. Because
so I'm assuming that whoever comes into power, there will be pressure or otherwise to perhaps move those thresholds. Meanwhile, let's talk fuel tax, because there is some quite considerable discussion about how much we pay, and this is why, you know, once again, talking about electric cars, one of the reasons I went to an electric car is that I objected to the fact that 60+% of every litre of fuel I was shoving in my petrol car was tax. It is a triple tax. Why?
Well, just before we move on, if I may, let's not assume that there will be pressure to move the tax threshold.
Okay, no, let's move on because we're running out of time, Roger. So let's talk about the triple tax, which is on fuel tax.
Well, it's obscene. I mean, there is tax on the petrol and the diesel, and then there's VAT, but the VAT is not only charged on the petrol and the diesel, it's actually charged on the fuel tax on the petrol, on the diesel. It's a tax on tax. And then, of course, we're paying for our petrol and our diesel with pounds from our pocket that have already suffered PAYE or will suffer tax, income tax in one way or another. So it's a triple tax, and the government take is horrendous, and they need to ease it, even temporarily, if they want to do anything at all about the cost of living.
Well, good luck with that. Now, the music means that we must move on. So, in a word, interest rates, when are they coming down? Give me a month, Roger.
They might come down between June and August, because so much pressure will be put on the Bank of England to stop being so stubborn. They've reached their inflation target of 2%. No thanks to them.
Well, indeed, and the thing is that there are no changes in interest rates in August, so we might have to wait till September. Dr. Roger, we're out of time, but I'm sure we will speak at the other side, speak to you very soon. Thank you for joining us this morning here on Talk, where we turn our attention to the papers and even more bizarre stuff coming out, including